I joined it early on, and I
Okay.
kind of like Marilyn and I did something on StreamYard,
Oh, cool.
and it was all cool. But then I couldn't do this, and I couldn't do that, and we down. And then it was like, okay, so what do I pay Facebook? Let's just get down to it. And it was like, well,
Well, yeah, you can just go live on Facebook
and you
and you
can
don't
go,
need StreamYard. Mm,
yeah. And I just got annoyed.
right
And
on.
that doesn't mean I should stay annoyed at them because it does some cool stuff. Did Marilyn tell you about the company I've been talking to who have done their own Zoom?
Ooh, no, I want to know more.
I don't know that we want to talk about it in here.
Okay, we won't talk about it here.
We
We'll
will
talk
talk,
about it elsewhere.
yeah.
So welcome everyone. I'm live on YouTube and we're so it'll be on YouTube as a thing I did live to watch later. And on the podcast today, I have Charel Morris, who is a quantum field manifesting magician. Tell us more about you and what you do, Charel.
Well, my base training is shaman. Not really the base. Base is Renaissance. But then the shamanic world took over my world. And I love it. I love it. And one of the things that brought me to the quantum is that even the scientists talk about the quantum being something from 3 or 4 thousand years out with the shamans.
Mm.
There's a connection there in how they work with energy and stuff. So that just kind of was like, oh, I should be there.
I do think it's interesting that the science and spirituality have kind of collided in our modern world, and the scientists are no longer saying, "Well, that's not real." They're embracing the fact that there's up until now unexplained things, miracles,
Yeah.
instant things that happen, and you, of course, can explain it through the quantum.
Well, it is an interesting aspect that has to do a lot, speaking from the spiritual scientist, quantum, quantum physics person, because a lot have not come over.
Mm.
Get to that kind of crazy nonsense if you want. But yes, the quantum has been in existence forever. But as things came up, maybe in the year 10,000, no, not that far. Anyway, before we got into the Dark Ages, the Catholic Church having very set rules and decisions as to how things work, they were controlling the musicians, the composers,
Mm.
when everything was all very.
All right, there were illegal notes that you weren't supposed to
Yeah.
sing. Yeah, I
And
forgot.
the artists kind of appealed to the church.
Hmm.
And it's like, no, you have to stay like this because we don't want them excited.
Mm.
So we go ahead another couple of 100 years. You start getting, Bach gets a little, there's a little more openness. But the whole separation between creative beings and people who wanted the world to be a certain way, especially European world, and moved over to America. In that, I mean, you probably know the reason priests are not allowed to get married was because the church realized back in 300, 400, 1,000, whatever, that the priest would get married in this area that he built this great church for. And when he died, like most everyone in existence, the family receives all of the value. The church, the money, the donations, the fancy clothes. And, Rome wasn't happy with that. So you have to stay unmarried, just like Jesus. He's like, have you met Mary Magdalene, by the way?
I think it's a fascinating concept. I never thought about why. I never thought about the financial reason for not letting priests marry in that particular way. Thank you for enlightening me.
Well, my degree is in music history.
Mm.
I had some really wonderful music history teachers in our department who were like, now let's talk about how it really went down.
Yeah.
And it's astounding. And as physics, chemistry and physics and, gravity came to be, that started separating out the church. Because there would be like one of our main scientists of the 1500s who does something and finds another planet. Well, that can't be there because it's not in our book. So off with your head, maybe, not really, but, a major separation. And science in that last couple of hundred years to like this moment, the quantum scientists, as they started coming back in, science, people who are scientists at this point in time are employed by major corporations, military. If they shift over to having a new quantum point of view, they don't make money.
Mm.
Surprise, it's all about money. But it's caught on in bringing the spiritualness back into it, this, the consciousness. There was no reason before like 1900 or something, when Tesla and folks were around, for scientists to ever think anyone needs to have any consciousness. I don't know, you're aimed at making an atomic bomb. I'd like you to be a little conscious about what you're doing. It's in your future. Don't,
Mm. Mm.
It just, and in the last 500 or 600 years, a lot of what went on was separating people. You're white. Well, I am, but let's pretend I'm not. I'm green. You're a woman. I'm a man. Everybody separates.
Right.
You are from this country, and we're going to take a bunch of your people and probably make them slaves. And then, the really rich people will just take their stuff. And so everything starts separating. And when you look around you now, what is going on in Israel? What is this crazy stuff?
I'm surprised, actually, Charel, that I really thought that the pandemic we just came through, or maybe we're still in it, I'm not entirely sure, was when everyone would wake up on the planet and see how connected, how interconnected we all are. Like one person breathes in some country and someone in another country gets sick.
Yeah.
And we're all sharing the same air on the planet. It seemed like there was some kind of unity happening for a minute.
There was.
And now, boom, everything's in our face to show maybe our inner thoughts and beliefs, to bring those up just front and center.
When I read some of the quantum science people who are very excited and pro quantum, they talk about those are the elements that we will remove. That's separation.
Mm,
Because
right.
there is this aspect within us that we know, you know, I don't, wherever your ancestors came from, that's wonderful. It was probably great, but it doesn't mean I can't take care of you. I can't talk to you. I'm going to assume you are doing all this bad stuff, and therefore I can't be there. That is what is seeming to change with the quantum, because bringing out the spiritual side of science really is like, I barely took a science class in college. I was a music history major playing classic guitar. I don't want to be in that other building. And then they explained to us that, well, you can't graduate without one of those little dots on your page. I was like, well, that really sucks. And a bunch of the guitar students, we were talking about this because many of us were in this little mess. And the gentleman who was actually our guitar teacher, who was from Hungary, came in. He said, what's the problem? And we told him, and he went, I think your problem's gone. The head of the physics department is studying with me. Literally, he was head of the department. Our guy went in and said, hey, we got this. We need to do that. You want to learn that stuff? These are your friends. I don't know what he said, but that's my theory. And the next thing we knew, he put up a new class that was just for us, as far as I know. I don't know that it was. And he taught it. And he came and taught us the coolest, weird physics stuff.
Ooh, I love that. So you had like physics for musicians?
Yeah. Physics for musicians who could possibly be drunk. Because,
Oh,
that's it.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
That is so
I mean,
cool.
everything just opened up. And when I started studying back on this, I didn't know that the scientists a couple of 100 years back up until now, they would find something in their research or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, well, what is that? I don't know. It's not responding right. Okay, let's just put it aside. And it's not there. It doesn't exist. That's how come we have a black hole. Anything they didn't understand, and nothing was supposed to be connecting. If they didn't kind of get it in terms of how fast it goes from here to there or whatever it would be, it's just kind of, well, it doesn't matter. And that's in some ways why we have things like the black star. I mean, it's just, we don't know, because everything's black except for the few things we understand, or maybe a lot they understand, but it's separated. And in quantum, and yes, there's quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and they sort of pull it back into reality. It sees everything as one. It could be you, me, we are one. It could be the tiniest little piece they find flying out on some other solar system, some other universe. That too is part of us. We need all of their connections and wisdom and such to bring our world into where we want it to be. And light is forever.
Oh, that's so beautiful. So you're explaining something that might be hard for some people to grok.
It was hard
But
for me. I just went,
but
okay, fine.
everything is connected. Let me see if I understand you. everything is connected and we are all one. We are all part of the universe or the one song.
Mhm.
And so what we are experiencing is ourselves as an individual, but really we're all connected, all the humans on the planet, and all the specks of everything everywhere in the universe
Animals.
is all, and the animals. And what about our thoughts? Is that in there too?
Well, yeah, it's part of what we bring forward.
Mm-hmm.
And there's references that some of those beings are sentient as we think of it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
The goldfish. I mean, and that eventually what we see as the wild animals and the whatever are going to be much more sentient,
Okay.
maybe more than we are, if that's even something that happens. You know, like, well, you're this sentient or you're that sentient. I don't know about that. But I do know that one of the things that has changed for me is choosing to be working with energy, working with how this kind of plays in with people and animals and everything in a world that sees us all equal, all powerful, all sentient, and the light will never dim.
Mm.
I don't, I mean, true, I don't know much about physics, but the concept that it's all about, like, you can move it here or move it there, and how long does it take to get from here to there? And yeah, okay. We were studying this? Okay. I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure it's brought amazing magical things into our world because it's the quantum who did digital. It's the quantum. Everything we're using today comes in from the quantum world.
Right. And it's like the statement that there's no question that does not have an answer in the universe.
Mhm.
And there's no problem that doesn't have a solution. And so one might think the questions or the problems are in our own human thinking, but the solutions and the answers are everywhere present in the quantum. We just have to tap into them. And how do you help people do that?
Part of my work has become, which I don't think I would have ever considered this, but the asking of questions is incredibly important in quantum.
Mm-hmm.
One of the major brightest guy, he passed away about maybe 10 years ago, and he was always teaching in universities and such. And one of his students said he would kind of come in some days and just kind of sit with them, waiting for a question, because the questions are the most important thing.
Ooh, I heard that Einstein said that too. He said if I had a problem to solve that was life or death,
Mm-hmm.
and I had 1 hour to solve it, I would spend 55 minutes posing the question. And
Mm-hmm.
once I had the question, I would know the answer.
That's, yeah. And um, this gentleman, I mean, and yes, Einstein was in the mix of his people
Mm-hmm.
that he spoke to, and they all shared stuff. When they do their big um, research conferences, do you know who they invite to sit up on the main panel? The Dalai Lama. And he is that element where, there's something I was reading where they've been meeting all day and all this talk about something or another, and it was all about out here. And they turned to the Dalai Lama as they were all getting ready to go to lunch and said, is there something we're missing? It's very, not word for word.
Yeah.
And the Dalai Lama looked and said, "It's wonderful what you see around you outside. You're doing, it's amazing. I wish we would spend more time looking inside."
Mm.
And they went, "Okay, change the afternoon plan." That blew me away. I mean, there are a lot of major Indian scientists, and many of them, I'm actually taking a class right now with one who's, I believe he is Indian, and he is very much in the quantum realm. And it's just, I used to be, people would talk about this, I want to raise my energy, I'm going to raise my frequency. That's great. But I don't know how we individually are going to do that with enough intention to break free of what is going on. But
Yeah, because the human reality is you can raise your vibration and then you go back down into what's familiar.
yeah,
And then you can raise it up again and then you slip back down into what is familiar. And what is familiar is not, as we can see by looking around our world, not a very high vibration.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not a very loving, kind-hearted way of living.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the element of bringing quantum forward, making it viable, that it requires your consciousness,
Mm.
requires working in collaboration with others. It requires that for everything to grow around it, my version. And I just had this, all of a sudden, everything flipped over for me this last spring. And it was like, okay, I am not going to be a scientist, but as a shaman, I can see some pretty cool things coming out of this that I can play with. And I can get other people to understand and kind of play with the fact that quantum energy is everywhere. It is in us, it is around us. And quantum energy comes from observation, which is a very sort of psychic physics area. But I do things with my clients where we look at that and observe what I'm doing in my day to day. Observe what someone else is doing. Because when I'm observing what's around me and I realize someone else is observing me, that actually connects that I'm actually doing this. It's kind of the way the universe evolved.
It's like if a tree falls in the forest, does it make a sound?
Yeah.
Or, and I think they've done some research recently where if something is observed, it changes its behavior,
Yes.
even in a scientific laboratory.
Yes.
So watching it, and how do you explain that in the quantum? Watching something or observing something focuses your energy on it, and so it expands that or makes it more.
It responds to your observation.
Okay.
I don't know which way, how, up or down.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the descriptions I heard or I read somewhere, which I thought was pretty hysterical and really good, was that God is, because in the quantum world, God is. And then God created this thing and didn't know anything. It's like, oh. And then this thing turned around and saw that God had made it. At that point, God realized it was there.
Oh, but not before.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
I mean, that's just one of those things that makes you go, wow, okay, yeah. I mean, he's there, but, so the concept, as we see in the Bible, of God said, let there be light, let there be, maybe not for real, but maybe that was also his response when they saw what he created.
Mhm.
Let there be light. And there will always be light.
Now, you've said that several times. What do you mean by that?
It's a
There will
different,
always be light.
it's a different frequency of light.
Okay.
And it's from everything they've been able to measure, look at, I don't know, bet on, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a light that will not go dark. And in terms of how we as humans have been responding over things for the last number of years about we need our frequency up, we need to be there, we need to be there. Choosing, observing, being in a universe that has that sense of light that is infinite. Maybe the way we help get there.
Mm.
As we observe it, or just understand it in a sense, that's adding to the universe.
I love that.
So that's
So,
what we do.
what can you share? What can you share with our listeners as a little bit of something you might do in one of your classes or with one of your coaching clients?
Um, hmm. I do blend a lot of things
Yes.
between shamanic work and quantum, but I have a group now that meets every Monday night. People can join. And it's really my intention there is to get people to start realizing and looking at certain things, observation of what they're doing, so to speak, and observing what other people are doing starts changing their life.
Mm.
And we're not talking like, oh, look, here's your brand new Cadillac. We're talking about, wow, today I noticed this and I observed it and I talked with somebody about it and I felt like I'm flying all day.
Wow.
People, I mean, that's one of the things I get a lot. It's like, it just makes me so happy. And happy people, I think, it's part of the step. And I asked them we're creating this journal, which is a thing I learned from Jean Houston way back. And it was really looking at what you're going through in your life that you sense as being kind of a quantum awakening.
Mm.
And so we did them 1 week. We continue with that. This last session, I mean, a lot of these people have known each other for a while, but it's been very interesting how people kind of will do like a visualizing thing or some sort of meditating thing. And people start going, well, I felt this right behind my back, right behind my heart. And someone goes, I did. And just that element of them getting together, because I'm not meditating with them to go behind your heart and see what you find. It's very loose. It's very it's kind of, okay, so where are you with this? we are getting ready, or I am getting ready, but they seem to be almost more excited than I am. For the first time in a number of years, I'm doing a winter solstice that doesn't go on for 3 or 4 days. I have a lot to say about winter and solstice and all that good stuff. And one of my clients said, it's like, I was there last year. It was great. But 3 days between the 20th of December and the 28th, it's kind of nightmarish to try to figure out how to make that work in your life.
Right.
She goes, how do you feel about doing one night? And I kind of sat with a bit, and I was like, well, there's no such thing as time in the quantum, so there shouldn't be a problem.
Right. So you can do in one night what you could do in 3 days. It doesn't matter. You could probably do it in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful.
But I like being with people more than that. But
Yeah. 5 minutes is not a lot enough time for everybody to say hi. Right.
I mean, I've done, the 5-day program things that were completely about time because, and people haven't going, wow, I came down for this extra class today knowing that all that I had to do in that morning could not happen in 3 hours. It was always 5 hours. And they walked in the door on time and they went, I'm here. Got everything done. It's all cool. Everything. And
oh yeah, so you can stretch time. You teach people how to stretch time.
Well, we work on that.
I have a friend here in town who told me the first day I met her, she goes, we're going to have lunch. And then like 3 hours later, she looks at her watch. She goes, oh, I have an appointment, but I know how to stretch time. It's in 10 minutes, but I think we could talk for 20. And it seemed like we talked for 20 minutes and there was still 2 minutes for her to walk across the street and go to her appointment.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was cool. How'd you do that? She said, I don't know, but I do it all the time. She just says, I need to stretch time, and time stretches out for her.
Well, we created time.
Yeah, right. We made it up as humans.
Yeah, it's
true.
not like gravity. It didn't come with the big ball of whatever. And I had an experience when I was I lived all my life in Los Angeles. When I was there, I had gone out to a church in Riverside, which is a couple hours out of Los Angeles, and done a mask training with them. It's fun. And we all went together after church on Sunday. Fine. Everything, we're all packed up. I had a meeting on the other side of Los Angeles, like out not too far from Ojai, so to speak. And I had 3 hours. It seemed, that's reasonable. And I got on the freeway and we immediately sort of stopped to what was like a crawl. And we heard on the radio there was a bridge up ahead. Something had happened. They were out fixing it. And it was like the entire length of the freeway that I was going to be on until I was like way into Los Angeles. And there were a lot of people. And I'm just driving and I'm being very careful. We've got people everywhere and I'm just driving. And I'm thinking, I'm really moving. This is good. I'm going to get there by that time. I will be there that time. And I looked down at my element that tells me how fast I'm going. 80.
What?
And I'm like looking down going, okay. And I'm looking out and there are cars and we're like door to door, front to back. I mean, so if that's telling me what's true, which there's no reason it would not be, then everybody's going 80. And I have to stay very focused because I'm responsible for getting them from here to there safely, myself and everyone, even the people going the other way, apparently, because they seem to be. And we got up to where the bridge thing was happening. And now it sort of opened up, and there was all these people. And I arrived where I needed to be in 2.5 hours. I don't understand that. I mean, I read all about where the traffic was stopped and this and that. And people, they'd interviewed on the newspaper going, yeah, it took us 5 hours to get home. It took this, that, and the other. And I'm like, sorry. I don't know. I don't know how this happened. But it totally brought me to understand that it's a controllable aspect of my life.
That's so beautiful.
And I have to be responsible for it. I mean, if I'd been the only one out driving on the freeway and I just said, I'm going to be there in an hour, probably could happen, but I'd be the only one I had to really think about.
Right.
In the midst of this, because I was on the far inside lane, I should be, I was driving really fast, and we're all going down this thing, but it looks normal. It looks like we're just barely moving. The car about 3 cars ahead of me started bouncing. And I was like, okay, that's not a good sign. So I focused on that car. And the next thing I knew, the 2 cars beside him separated. The ones over separated. The last lane separated. And this car just bounced across the road to off the road where everything was safe. I just knew I had to be aware and focused of what was happening in that car because don't know.
Wow. So this is a totally great explanation of how you can use your attention to transform what you think you're seeing, and how you can also use the power of disbelief. So most people believe what they see and think that it is 100% real.
Yeah.
But is it? Maybe it is, and maybe it's not.
Do you need it to be real? Because, matter's an interesting element in the quantum field. When I say matter, it's like, no, we're talking actual stuff, the stuff that makes things. Because I don't use the word often that way. And I'm getting aware that that's an element I need to do. It's like my goal in working with clients. I mean, I would love to have some who just want to like ride it to this moon or whatever. And I think I'll have some of those because that's where I want to go.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
But for people to just realize it is part of us. It's not like when I first started doing quantum work with people, I did this whole thing at the beginning. We were going to go out to the quantum field and fly through the universe, and it's all beautiful, and we're here, and here's your quantum self. And then sometime this summer, it was like, it's already here. It doesn't do with time. Why am I taking 3 minutes of a process to fly through the universe? Isn't it beautiful? You can't really see anything because we're going faster than light, but other than that, it's really amazing. And here we are. And then I just went, that is the silliest thing. And so now it's call in, just observe it. Claim that you see it, you understand it. We know it exists. I mean, the wonderful science people have made that very clear. And it has all these kind of odd elements to it. I loved it in the reading. It was like the scientists go, well, what we know is we don't understand it at all, but it always works.
Mm,
And
we
there's
don't understand it, but it
they
always works.
we don't quite get what this is doing like this, but it always works.
Wow.
Don't ever worry.
Wow. It
Yeah.
kind of is a metaphor for life itself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why in my quantum solstice, as it is now being called, the quantum solstice awakening. I like those words together.
Okay, so how can people find you if they want to work with you? They can go to quantumsolsticeawakening.com or
No,
no?
I had something out here. Yeah.
And if you can't pull it up out of your quantum self brain, we
Yeah.
can always put it in the show notes later for people. You can send me an email.
Look in the show notes. Give us
Yeah.
24 hours, please, because sometimes I do get tripped up by time. You know,
There's
it's
no
not
time.
best
There's
for
no time and space in the universal quantum field.
well, that's
So don't
okay.
worry about it.
Elise and I will come back here this morning
Right on.
and make it all.
Yesterday. We'll come back yesterday and it'll all be good when tomorrow when you see it.
Yeah, it'll be great. It's going to be fun. I've never done one at this price. It's only $25.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. I
It will
hope a
be
lot of people sign up
yeah.
because you were telling me the other day, and we'll just talk a little bit about winter solstice before we log off, but one of the oldest celebrations on the planet?
Yes. And it's that for almost every tribe, group, city, town on earth. And the element was that I mean everybody had to get their own food and do their own crops, whatever, kill their own whatevers. And in ancient times, they started being aware that it's getting darker.
Yeah.
And so for hundreds of years, I mean, they knew things were moving in the sky. They paid attention to that. They knew the sun was essential for survival.
Right.
And as we get toward the end of winter and it's all very dark through the day and very dark at night, they would do ceremonies in all different parts of the world that would involve making really big bonfires, trying to kind of call the sun back. Can we take over for the sun? No. We need this to change. And then on the 22nd, there's a clear understanding from our ancient ancestors that the sun came back and it's beginning to build again. It's time for us to start the year. Winter solstice was originally where the year goes from 2023 to 2024. And when we got into COVID, I noticed that there was a real desire to get out of 2020.
Yes.
It's
Globally.
like, at it, we're done, let's go. And I was putting the solstice work together and I started promoting it as, would you like to go to 2021 now? It's actually the first day of the year.
I love that.
So for those of you who really are, you can take Christmas with you. It's all fine. None of those holidays have to go away. Some of them were put here with nefarious reasons. And we would spend time on those 3 sessions of working up what it is you want. What do you want for the next year? And it was one of the first quantum things. It was actually, we did a quantum leap in the work on the last night to the next year, which was a fun experience.
Well,
But yeah,
cool.
we'll do it
I
all.
can't I
Out.
can't wait to experience some of this with you. It sounds really fun,
It's
and I
fun.
will put it in the show notes so people can find you. Thank you for your time today, Charel. It was, as
You
always, lovely to connect with you.
I appreciate that. I always like having some time to be with you and talk with you. She does cool stuff. Like, just so
Yes,
you know that I do cool stuff, but she
we
is,
both do cool stuff,
yeah.
and we play with people's time and attention and change their minds about what they think is real.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the other day I was talking to a guy. I said, this is a dream. We think we're awake, but we're really in a dream. As Deepak would say, we're in a lucid dream in a vivid reality.
Yeah, we should turn that around. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So with that, I'll end this time together and thank you so much. Appreciate you.
See you Sunday.
All righty.